Hi, Scott Orlin with Cinema Magazine. A new TV series is coming your way. It's called Euphoria. And if there's one thing I can tell you, be glad you're not still in high school. And one of the actors who's going to explain part of that show is Jacob Elordi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to talk to you about Nate, because when we first meet this guy, there's kind of an affinity. We feel like, hey, he's kind of a cool guy. As layers start to unfold and peel back, he's not exactly what we think he is. There's a darker side.
Yeah, I don't know if he's so much of a cool guy when we meet him as an asshole, but yeah, definitely as the series goes on pretty quickly, I think you start to see that there's maybe another kind of life and something going on under the surface that makes him be the way he is.
But what's interesting, at least empathetic about him, is we kind of see childhood trauma in a way, that he witnesses something as a little kid that I think probably steers him in this direction. Is that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely the sort of, I suppose, the driving force. His sort of family secret would be the driving force behind pretty much everything he does. I think his life is basically a series of navigating how to keep that monster at bay, I think.
Sadly, I've been out of high school for a few years. You haven't. So, can you compare, even though you grew up in Australia, was there a systematic hierarchy? Was there an explosive combatant atmosphere that kind of existed in high school for you that you could relate to while making this show?
I played rugby union in high school, and I mean it's incredibly far removed, but there was definitely at my high school there was an onus on rugby, and you could kind of get away with a lot of stuff, and the rugby players did, I think, sometimes walk around like they owned the college and got a few perks and didn't have to do certain things. But I'm not sure if it was, in my experience, for me, it wasn't as sort of violent and hypersexual but still dark for sure at times.
You mentioned rugby, but that's not the sport that he's asked to play in this. No. It's American football.
Yeah.
How much of a learning curve was that for you to even have to be somewhat believable?
Yeah, I had a great quarterback coach, Theo, who sort of I would train with a couple of times a week. I was pretty dead set on learning sort of like the terminology and the physicality of a football player. By the end of it, I have to say I wasn't very good at throwing the football, but I just was more into like the psyche of a football player and stuff like that. So I had like a team of people who were helping me get into like American football and learn about it.
But you look believable, and that's the most important thing.
Right.
I think probably one of the most impressive aspects of the show to me is, when you see it, you'll understand, is after the show, when different cast members talk about some of the high volatile subjects that are kind of dealt with in some of the episodes, because from, like you said, sexuality to abuse, suicide thoughts, I mean, so many different, a myriad of things, and there's a sense of responsibility the actors seem to want to have to the audience. Can you talk a little bit about, even amongst yourselves with Zendaya, how you've talked about how important it is to open dialogue?
That's funny. I've always get asked these questions, and selfishly I have to say that it wasn't something that I really put my mind to, I guess, because the end product of things is really kind of out of my hands. Obviously, if something is blatantly exploitative on paper, I don't really want to play it. But for me, it was more about how can I be honest as a character, and the easiest way for me to do that was to not think about have inhibitions about what it might mean to people watching it and stuff. I think in hindsight, just as a viewer and a consumer, like in retrospect, I think the biggest part of it for all of us is maybe a kid can see one of our characters and find like a sense of peace, or maybe they can relate to them, and I think at best that's all I can hope for.
And the last question for you, I mean, obviously there's a lot of young people that, like, God, one day I want to become an actor. Let's say they live in the United States. Hollywood can be so far off. You grew up in Australia. Because of the great abundance of successful Australians who've made the transition, did it make your road easier? Are there more open arms, so to speak, for young actors coming out of Australia?
No, it was incredibly difficult. I think there's a feeling when you're there that you're kind of landlocked and you don't, and getting out. America seems very, very far away, but honestly, it's as simple as for me, and I think for the other people, it's like if you want to do it, the channels are there and the paths are there, and sort of for us, I think we have to. You can't sort of fall into it. I think you have to really love what you do, and if you love it, I think you can find your way, anywhere. I think so that was sort of what it was like for me.
Well, you seem to be doing okay, Jacob.
Thank you.
I can't thank you enough. Really appreciate it.
Thanks very
The
much.
show is called Euphoria, and this is Scott Orlin. Till next time.
Cheers. Thanks, Scott Lee.